How's it going, YouTube? Got FourthStarTCG here, and welcome back to another Guardians Rising deck video. Today we are going over possibly the most annoying deck to come out of Guardians Rising. I am not a big fan of these kind of decks at all, but I figured it might be time to try out a stall deck. This deck is incredibly painful if you're playing up against it. It can be pretty fun to play yourself, but I generally don't like these decks as I want to have fun when I'm playing, and these decks really aren't too fun to me. But I figured it is time to go over this list, as it is again a very hyped deck to come out of Guardians Rising, and I think it's going to make a big splash in the format. I just want to thank YellowSwellow for this list. It's not an exact copy of the list that he used, it's very similar. I think I've taken out a professor's letter and I've added in a parallel city. And I think, I know I've made, that might be the only change, but it is very similar to his deck list, so I will link both his video on this list and his channel in the video description below, so just so you guys know where this deck list has come from. So let's get into the deck profile. We are running a 4-1-1-4 line of Eevee. This is a little weird, but we have a Energy Evolution Eevee, which is wonderful. This is really what makes this deck work. When we attach a basic energy card from our hand to Eevee, we may search our deck for a card that evolves from the Pokemon that is the same type as the energy card and put it on to Eevee. So this is great because we can get out our Sylveon GX turn 1 just by attaching an energy. And because we play no cards to search out Sylveon GX other than energy, this is really this ability is really important. So it is really difficult to, you basically auto lose to Garbodor, or not Garbodor, a Wobbuffet if it's in the active and you can't use Energy Evolution and you don't draw into your Sylveon really quickly. But we do play 4 copies of it, so it is possible to get out that Sylveon, but Wobbuffet is a big issue for this deck. So we play 4 of that. We play 4 copies of Sylveon GX. Sylveon GX has 3 attacks. For 1 Fairy Energy, you can use Magical Ribbon, and this is the main attack we're going to be using. We can search our deck for any 3 cards and put them into our hand, and then we shuffle our deck. So the main objective of this deck is to search out disruption cards like Crushing Hammer, Team Flare Grunt, Team Rocket's Handiwork, Delinquent, all sorts of Team Skull Grunt, all sorts of disruption cards. We can search out our max potions here in order to heal up our Sylveons. We search out our Puzzles of Time to get cards back. Really just any type of disruption that we want, we can get it out of the deck. And yeah, so that's the main attack that we are going to be using. Our other attack, Fairy Wind, does 110 damage, and just fairly standard. It's nice because that 110 will knock out Shaman, but it's also 10 short of the knockout on the new Guardians Rising Garbodor, which is a pain, as you really want to be one-shotting that, but we do play ways to bump up the damage if we have to. And then Plea GX is a fairly good GX attack. We get to put 2 of our opponent's benched Pokemon and all cards attached to them into our opponent's hand. So if our opponent is playing a deck like Greninja Break and they've got 2 Greninja Breaks out, we can just Lysander or something and throw all those back into their hand. And it's really difficult for them to get those back out again. This is again really nice versus evolution decks, as they do all that work to evolve and then you just put it back into their hand. Versus stuff like Turbo Dark, you should pretty easily win the Turbo Dark matchup, but if they've got something with a bunch of energy on it, you just put it back into their hand. If they do keep it in their hand, we have stuff like N and Delinquent to get rid of it. Yeah, so we also play 1 copy of Vaporeon. This is really nice for the Volcanion matchup. I played 1 game versus Volcanion and it just obliterated this list, since they have options to recover energy from the discard pile. They play so many energy, your Team Flare Grunts really aren't doing much. Your team's like, Volcanion really doesn't mind having all of their energy discarded because they can just get it back really easily. So for that matchup, you really want to be one-shotting their Volcanion EXs as often as possible with Fairy Wind, so that Vaporeon is lovely, and the Flareon is also there for Decidueye decks, Decidueye Vileplume. You only do 220, but you can up that with Professor Kukui up to a one-shot versus Decidueye decks. So this is really, really good to be able to knock out those top-tier decks in the format. They're just here if we need them. Again, if we're not going up against Volcanion or Decidueye, we won't need them, but it's really important to win those matchups. Yeah. So now into all of these sort of disruption cards that we play. 4 copies, whoops, bumped that down to 3 accidentally. 4 copies of Crushing Hammer, flip a coin. If it's heads, we get to discard an energy from one of our opponent's Pokemon. Enhanced Hammer, discard any special energy. We play 1 copy of Escape Rope, just a nice switching card in order to get both our active and our opponent's active out of the active. Pretty nice if we're going up against something like a Glaceon deck, as we only play evolutions, and we need to damage it. We play 1 copy of Field Blower, nice to get rid of stuff like Choice Band as that hits us for extra damage. 2 copies of Level Ball, which allows us to search out our EVs. 3 copies of Max Potion, whoops, I just threw away my gold. We'll throw that back in there. We'll find that, and we'll throw in that right there. So 3 copies of Max Potion, we get to heal all damage from one of our Pokemon, and if we do, we discard all the energy attached to it. Since we're normally only going to be having 1 energy on Sylveon, this really isn't a problem. So Max Potion can really help you out getting rid of all that damage. 4 copies of Puzzle of Time allows us to get back cards from our discard pile, which is very nice, and since we can basically freely search out 2 copies of Puzzle of Time at any time with Magical Ribbon, that's really going to help us out. We play 1 copy of Super Rod. We get to shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards back into our deck. Nice if our Sylveons get knocked out. 4 copies of VS Seeker for all of our supporters, fairly standard. I play 3 copies of Parallel City. This is really nice to hopefully give opponents some trouble with stadiums, having their own stadium in play. Great versus stuff like Mega Rayquaza, which can really go off and one-shot your Sylveons. 1 copy of Delinquent, again a useful disruption card which forces our opponent to discard cards from their hand. 1 copy of Lysander, or 2 copies of Lysander, just to bring up something from the bench. Really nice if you want to stall versus something like a Volcanion deck. But the Volcanion list that I played up against, I think it ran 3 Switch and like a couple Escape Rope and 3 Floatstone. It was nuts. So we have 4 copies of N. This is really our only draw supporter of choice. We're not playing Sycamores because we never really want to discard anything, so that's why we're only playing 4 copies of N. 1 copy of Olympia, really nice for the healing aspect and switching around if one of our Sylveons gets stuck in the active with no energy on it, as it does have a 2 retreat cost and we're finding it difficult to find energy. If any of our Evolutions get stuck in the active, they have 2 retreat cost. For Vaporeon, I think Flareon has 1. But yeah, if our Vaporeon gets stuck in the active, we really don't want to attach, or if our Escape Rope's already been used, having that Olympia there is nice. 1 copy of Professor Kukui. This allows us to hit the knockout on stuff like the Guardians Rising Garbodor with Fairy Wind. It also allows us to get the one-shot on Decidueye lists if we have Flareon in play and we use Fairy Wind, so it's just a nice card there. 4 copies of Team Flare Grunt, discard an energy attached to our opponent's active Pokemon. 2 copies of Team Rocket's Handiwork. We flip 2 coins, and for each heads we discard 2 cards on top of our opponent's deck. 1 copy of Team Skull Grunt. We look at our opponent's hand and we discard 2 energy from it. 2 copies of Double Colorless Energy. We really aren't going to be using Fairy Wind that much, so we really only need 2 copies here. And we have 7 copies of Fairy Energy, again because this is a card you really want to, I maybe play 8. Might cut something like, again, a Parallel City or the Olympia if necessary, in order to add another Fairy Energy, because it's so essential that you get that out as early as possible, as this is your only way to evolve into Sylveon, really, your only guaranteed evolution. But yeah, so this list is incredibly frustrating for anyone who goes up against it. I know how painful playing against Sylveon can be. I've played against it a couple times. It's really not fun. The games are often long. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get some good matchups here. We can show off the power of Sylveon GX as we wait for TCGO to locate an opponent for us. Hopefully this will happen sooner rather than later. Alright, there we go. So we're going up against... That's interesting. Psychic, Dark, Fairy, Steel. Could be something like a Mega Gardevoir list. So we are going to go first. Hopefully we will hit that turn 1 Sylveon, which is really what you're looking for. So our opponent knows what we're playing now. It's not too much of a secret. But yeah, you will often mulligan, as you do only play 4 basic Pokemon. So that is something to keep in mind. But since I am going first here, I can hopefully N my opponent out of the all of the extra cards they're going to get, and we get 3 EVs. This is lovely, plus an energy, so that's fantastic. We draw no basic Pokemon, and then we draw into 3 of them. Hey, that's the luck sometimes. That's the luck that you get sometimes. But our opponent is playing Volcanion. Ugh, wow, this is weird. This might be like some sort of weird Mega Rayquaza list. But we are going to Energy Evolution here into Sylveon GX. So this is just amazing as we get the turn 1 Sylveon. We're going to throw down our 2 EVs. And we are going to use our Puzzle of Time just to see what we can draw into next turn. An N would be nice. I'm going to put the energy here just so we can get out another Sylveon. And I'm fine with that. We of course can't attack on our first turn. But since we have the Sylveon GX out, this is really what we're looking to do. Turn 1 was a big success for us getting out our Sylveon GX. I'm still not sure what my opponent is playing. We see Trubbish and Volcanion. This doesn't seem like a Trashalanche list. As we see 2 EXP shares hit the discard. So yeah, I'm really interested to see if this could be Rainbow Road with Garbodor. Yeah. So we see Rainbow Road with Garbodor. I don't know why you would play Garbodor in Rainbow Road, as you're pretty reliant on Shaymins. But we are going to get the energy off of the top deck as we wanted. So we are going to search our deck for another Sylveon GX and get it out. And Sylveon really is sort of a skill-based deck. It's a lot different than other stall decks where you just play your handiworks and you mill and you discard energy, because you really have to think sort of a turn ahead. What cards will I need after my opponent plays? So I'm going to search out for a Crushing Hammer to discard, hopefully discard my opponent's energy, an Enhanced Hammer to see if this list... Rainbow Road often plays DCEs, or of course it plays DCEs, so we're going to search that out, and we are also going to search out an N as a draw supporter for next turn. So, we'll see what my opponent does this turn. As they Professor Birch, which is nice because it doesn't get rid of all the cards that we decided to... the thing that you're really weak to in Sylveon can be N or Judge. Those are some things that can cause an issue for you. As we see the Floatstone come down onto the Volcanion. And it is our turn. So we're going to go for the Crushing Hammer here. As we do hit tails, unfortunately, I'm going to level ball, grab out our last Eevee. They did not end up attaching an energy, a special energy, so that enhanced hammer is kind of useless. But we will end here. And I think I'm going to Magical Ribbon again. Of course, we will grab out 2 copies of Crushing Hammer. We have an enhanced hammer in hand, so we don't really need to grab that. We also have a Team Flare Grunt in hand, so I'm also going to grab out a Field Blower. I could have gone for something like Crushing Hammer Energy Max Potion, just in case my opponent is able to get that DCE for next turn, or for this turn. But I think discarding the energy is the way to go here, as we would sort of be getting ahead of ourselves if we did that. Seeing as they weren't able to get the DCE last turn. As we see yet another Floatstone come down. And my opponent is going to VS Seeker for the Professor Birch. And they hit another heads, wow. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 types on their bench right now. So they are hitting for quite a bit of damage. 7 types. So that is going to knock us out. Wow. So we get hit for 220 damage here, which is pretty nuts. But we are going to be able to come in and really disrupt our opponent here. So we're going to Enhanced Hammer away the DCE. We are going to Crushing Hammer. We hit tails again, so we've hit 2 tails on Crushing Hammer, 3 tails on Crushing Hammer. Unfortunately, we're going to Field Blower. We're going to get rid of this Floatstone and the Floatstone on the Volcanion as well. And our opponent is not happy. We're going to Team Flare Grunt again, make them less happy. And we're going to Magical Ribbon. We're going to grab another Puzzle of Time, just so we can grab, just so we can get cards from our discard pile. We're going to grab another Sylveon GX, or actually I could just grab an energy. And I'm also going to, what else should I grab? A Parallel City. Looks like 2 of our Parallel Cities are prized, which is quite painful versus Rainbow Road, but we've cleared the field of energy as our opponent attaches another fairy here. And we see the VS Seeker for Professor Birch yet again. Are they going to hit another heads? They hit all the heads, we hit all the tails. There's the tails. Only 4 cards for my opponent. So, let's see, what can we do here? First, I'm going to Parallel City them, take down their bench size, force them to discard probably something like the Shaman and the Trubbish. That's what I would do. But that's their damage brought down by 60. So that's very important here. So we're going to evolve. We are going to double puzzle here for, I'm thinking, Crushing Hammer, and I don't really want the Field Blower at this point. Yeah, I don't really want the Field Blower at this point. We could just, for double Crushing Hammer, I think that's probably the best play, as we have access to Flare Grunt with our VS Seeker, as we have not hit a heads on Crushing Hammer yet, and we still do not hit a heads on Crushing Hammer, but we'll just Flare Grunt. So, we'll Magical Ribbon yet again. we'll grab out, let's see. My opponent really is not able to attack, so I'm going to grab out a Team Rocket's Handiwork so we can start milling here. We'll also grab out another energy to evolve our last Sylveon here. We'll also pull out a Delinquent just in case my opponent manages to find a counter stadium. So my opponent does find an N. But we do get End into a Team Flare Grunt, which is nice. So we're just going to, again, Team Flare Grunt. Fairly standard. I don't really want to attach energy here. I don't really see a need for that. And we are going to grab out another Crushing Hammer. Another VS Seeker, or well, we already have a VS Seeker, so let's grab our Handiwork again. And I'll also grab out a Team Skull Grunt. Just have options here. As they keep attaching energy to the active, I would probably attach to the benched, just because it can't be targeted by Flare Grunt. So we're going to Crushing Hammer. Can we hit a heads? Yes. Finally. So we do have the energy. We can evolve into our last Sylveon GX. And we can also... So is there a need to N? Not really. There's not much I could do. So we will search out... Let's see. Search out Delinquent, a Handiwork, and I think a VS Seeker. Seems good to me. Yeah, so we've used all 4 of our Crushing Hammers, and man. So we're just going to continue to discard energy here. This is really our play of choice. How many energy have we discarded? 4 Fairy and 2 DCE, so we're just continuing to hurt my opponent here. I feel quite bad. We can go for a Super Rod here. I think we got a couple things in the discard. We can also grab a DCE and possibly a Kukui if we want to knock out this Xerneas. So we see a Professor's Letter. Another energy attached. I wish I had my Team Skull Grunt. But what we can do is we can attach here and Professor Kukui. We got an Eevee, a Sylveon, and an energy in the discard, so we can Super Rod that back into the deck. And we will Fairy Wind for knockout here. Just another way to Sylveon can get rid of energy, as they do get to move energy to the benched here. But they do grab the Skyfield. So we see a Carbink come down, a Pawniard come down, and a DCE. So my opponent really going off now, but we do have all sorts of ways to get rid of their, get rid of everything. So what, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They do have the 7 types to knock us out, which is painful. So maybe I shouldn't have knocked out the... maybe I shouldn't have knocked out the... But we can't delinquent here. I think that's possibly going to be our choice. Yeah. Do we delinquent or do we team Flare Grunt? I'm going to team Flare Grunt. My opponent could have their last. If I team Flare Grunt and they have their, it's really just what they have. I can make them discard, but they're probably still going to have the 7 types. Yeah, they'll still have 7 types, so my best bet is really just to team Flare Grunt here. Yeah. So we'll get rid of the DCE here. I really wish our Crushing Hammers hit so we had less of them. And I also wish 2 of our Parallel Cities weren't prized. But we'll grab the Enhanced Hammer. Team Skull Grunt. And a DCE. We have access to pretty much any supporter here. But if my opponent has the... So they do have the Garbodor. And they drop their hand down to 3 cards, which I would definitely not do. We aren't going to delinquent though, we are just going to team Flare Grunt yet again. Get rid of the energy. This is our main goal here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's all we're going to do. We have all the cards we need. There's no need to thin our deck out even more. My opponent is just going to pass. So I'm going to delinquent this turn. We'll get rid of the Sky Field. We'll force them to discard some Pokemon. Not that it really matters, but it will get rid of cards from their hand. So our opponent loses some cards here. And they discard Shaman and Carbink. Fairly standard, I would say. Do I want to attach energy? Next turn we could do something like Lysander the Volcanion. Could work. Or we could play GX and throw something like this Bisharp and this Galvantula back into their hand. But I think the time we would do that would be when they... I think the time to do that would be when they attach an energy. So we can Team Rocket's Handiwork here. And we discard a DCE, which is super painful. But that's why we play it. So there's 4 DCEs gone for my opponent. That could possibly do it. Yeah, we really don't need to do anything else. We can, yeah, I think I'll Lysander the, we get 2 heads here, discarding, oh, so much stuff. But this is why Team Rocket's Handiwork is so powerful in the late game. If your opponent is sort of just doing nothing, you can wait it out. I think we've used all of our VS Seekers, so Yeah, so my opponent did attach an energy. I can Team Flare Grunt here. Get rid of the energy. End our turn. We've used all of our VS Seekers. I think we do have one Team Flare Grunt left, so I could have searched that out. Probably would have been the best play, but we do have access to the Lysander play here. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. And we can Magical Ribbon here. Find just our last Team Flare Grunt. So we're just sort of decking our opponent out here. Gonna Team Skull Grunt if they're holding any energy in their hand, which they are not, so no problem there. And we'll just end our turn. We do have the N in our hand eventually, but I believe our opponent will deck out before us, so waiting on everything here. So my opponent is now at 0 cards. Have they played ends? Yeah, so they are just going to forfeit. Extremely painful. Man, I feel so bad playing this deck. Wow. But that was exactly how Sylveon was supposed to work. The incredible frustration aspect of it. We will get one more game, as it looks like we were going up against Volcanion, which is a difficult matchup for Sylveon. And we lose the coin flip. So Volcanion is a difficult matchup for Sylveon, because, like I said, they really don't mind having all their energy in the discard. Our plan is probably going to be to strand a Volcanion in the active. Use all of their switching cards. But if we lose this game, I will not be surprised. So they do get a Shaman start. But yeah, like, Volcanion really doesn't mind having all its energy in the discard. So that's why we do play that the tech copy of Vaporeon, just so we can knock out the Volcanions if we have to. But what we don't have is an energy to evolve into Sylveon, which is painful. So we see the Volcanion come down. Gets an energy attached. And an N, which is fantastic. Thank you very much. Very happy about that N, as hopefully it'll N us into an energy, which it does not. Unfortunately. We do get a level ball, so we can search out our another Eevee, which is nice. But so we'll search out one of our Eevees is prized. So that's important to note. We will use our Crushing Hammer. We hit Tails. I think we've only hit one Crushing Hammer. We are going to grab the energy first, as that's really what we need. And we'll grab the N and the Flare Grunt back on the deck. And we'll end our turn. So I think I have only hit one heads on Crushing Hammer out of the I don't know how many times I've played it, but again, I'm not really complaining. I love when people hit tails on Crushing Hammer, so. We see the Olympia here. Most likely going to Olympia into this Volcanion. But we'll see what my opponent does. So See the Float Stone on the Shaman and the Professor Sycamore. Fighting Fury Belt onto the benched Volcanion. And I assume we're going to see a Power Heater here. One Steam Up would knock us out, so yeah. So we do get knocked out. And yeah, like, the energy acceleration in Volcanion is really difficult for Sylveon, so we are going to Energy Evolution here. I don't really think it matters, but one of our Sylveons is prized. Important to note, our Field Blower is there, our Max Potions are there, one VS Seeker prized, our Parallel Cities are there, one Handiwork is prized. I am going to evolve into Sylveon. I know we need our Eevee. So I'm going to grab the, let's see, what do I grab? We grab the Super Rod. We grab the, do they have a stadium in play? No. We grab the Super Rod, we grab the Team Flare Grunt, and we grab the Crushing Hammer, I suppose. So, we're just going to attempt to, again, stall our opponent out here. As we see the Fighting Fury Belt from my opponent. I could have searched out Field Blower, but I really didn't want to just get rid of a Fighting Fury Belt and a Float Stone, because I feel like they are going to play down more tools. But stranding this Volcanion could be an option, as our opponent is going to N us. Again, that's not too big of a problem, as they're refreshing our hand to 6. And we do have the option to Skull Grunt here. But normally if they have energy in hand, they're going to use it for Steam Up, so our Skull Grunt is kind of useless. As we see Ultra Ball dropping a Hoopa and a Max Elixir here for a Shaman. So, we'll continue to see what my opponent can do during their turn. Stranding a Volcanion would be really nice, but again, with the number of switching cards that are played, definitely think it's going to be difficult. So we're going to throw this down here. We're going to, do we need to Field Blower? Man. I could Skull Grunt. I guess there's not really another option. We're just going to Skull Grunt, and of course we hit nothing, but we see a lot of important things in my opponent's hand. Don't really want a Field Blower right now. Just going to Magical Ribbon for 2 Crushing Hammer and a Team Flare Grunt. So I really want to get rid of those energy attached to the baby Volcanions, as my opponent is going to N. But again, it refreshes our hand to 6, so it's not a major issue. So we do get End into something good. We have missed our Super Rod. So maybe we'll try to get that back next turn. As my opponent appears to be stuck. But we will see. as they do steam up here. And Power Heater for 60 damage. Throwing an energy down onto the baby Volcanion. We don't have any way to switch, or I would Max Potion, but we are just going to Team Flare Grunt here. I'm going to attach the DCE down here, and we're going to Magical Ribbon. I think we do have the Max Potion in hand, so we're going to grab out our Super Rod to throw Eevee back into the deck. We will also need another energy to attach next turn, so we'll grab that. And I think we can also grab out a Crushing Hammer. So we'll see what my opponent can do if they have the energy to attach here. They do have the Escape Rope, but that brings us out into this. They're going to need, what, 2 Steam Ups in order to knock us out? Which they can do, but given that they have 6 energy on the field, 7 with that in the discard pile might be difficult, and they are extending quite a bit in order to get what they need, so this does open them up to Team Rocket's handiwork here. They're going to Volcanic Heat for 140. So we are going to Super Rod our Eevee back into the deck, which is something that we very much need. We're going to Crushing Hammer. We finally hit a heads. We'll discard it from this active Volcanion here. I can Max Potion this. We do have another DCE in the deck, so I think just eliminating all damage from the field is going to be really nice. I probably should have... That was a misplay there. I should have Max Potion before I Super Rodded, because now I could have gotten back Eevee and 2 energy. But yeah, I'm not a top tier TCG player, so I will make mistakes sometimes. Again, we can just Max Potion this off. We lose the energy, but we play quite a bit. I think, again, our best play is probably just to Flare Grunt here. I could Skull Grunt. I think that's actually a better play to Skull Grunt, but they only used 1 Steam Up last turn, so they probably wouldn't have any more energy. So we're going to Flare Grunt, get rid of energy, Magical Ribbon, search out an Eevee. We are, is our Vaporeon? Our Vaporeon's prized. Ooh, that's lovely, and something I should have noticed a lot earlier. We can search out another energy, and probably just another Team Flare Grunt, I would think. Since our Vaporeon's prize, getting out the Eevee isn't too essential. Parallel City, that could work. We'll grab out a Parallel City, so we can drop our opponent's damage. So not only can this Volcanion not attack, it has no energy. But again, like I said, Volcanion really doesn't mind, so like my opponent Escape Ropes here, and they just bring all the energy back. But what have they used for switching cards? Their Olympia's in the discard pile. They've only used 1 VS Seeker and 1 Escape Rope, so it's pretty likely that they are going to be able to get out of the active here. But we will see. So yep, VS Seeker for Olympia. Olympia into the baby Volcanion, and Steam Artillery for 100 damage. So we are going to Parallel City here. Attach an energy. I could Field Blower away these Fighting Fury Belts, but to be honest, I really just think my best play is to Team Flare Grunt. And we will now Magical Ribbon. I am going to search out an Eevee this turn, just in case this this Sylveon does get knocked out. We'll also grab a Max Potion if they are unable to knock us out, and an energy. I think that's good, because we really want to focus on ourselves next turn, stop from getting knocked out. If they do somehow find an energy, we see the Skyfield here. But again, we'll see what my opponent can do. As we see the Fisherman, yeah, so Volcanion just plays so many ways to get energy back from the discard that, yeah. Discarding it it's just not a problem for them. We do see the Ultra Ball coming down here, discarding a Parallel City and a Fire Energy to grab out another Volcanion. Probably going for the one-shot on our Pokemon here. So they're going to Power Heater for the knockout, which is pretty painful. And throw down some energy. Take 2 prize cards. So we are going to Eevee. What can we do here? We can Lysander out something like this Volcanion. We see only 2 VS Seekers have been used, so I really don't think that's a great play right now. We can limit our opponent's bench to 3, which would probably just force them to discard some Shamans. Right now, I think our best play is probably some form of Team Rocket's Handiwork. I am going to Parallel City them. Force them to discard their benched Pokemon. Make them get rid of 1 Volcanion. Or they can get rid of this Volcanion if they want, but yep. So they are going to keep some Volcanions here. I don't really, do I want a Delinquent? Not really. I don't really want to get rid of my own stadium. I'm going to Lysander out this Volcanion, and we're going to Magical Ribbon. We're going to search out our Handiwork here. Also, 2 Puzzle of Time. I think we have some cards in the discard pile that would be nice to get back. Yeah, so we can get back a Super Rod, which would be nice, throw some energy back into our deck. Really just give us access to anything in our discard pile. So yeah, we see the Float Stone. Which is, again, painful. And my opponent VS Seeker is probably for Fisherman here. Yep. So they're going to bring back more energy. And they do have the 2 Steam Ups for knockout. So like I said, Volcanion is a tough matchup for Sylveon, as all of your energy discards really don't matter. As we see the Volcanic Heat for 200. Knocking us out, even with the Parallel City. So, what is our play for this turn? I believe we Crushing Hammer and hope. To be honest, I really think that's our best bet. We play 2 cards. We grab back 2 copies of Crushing Hammer here. I don't see the need to Flare Grunt, to be honest. Really our only hope is to... So we get a heads. I think I'm going to discard it from this Volcanion. Yeah, just because that's what's threatening us next turn. And we hit tails on this one, unfortunately. We are going to Field Blower away. Just this, I really don't want this to have a Float Stone, so we are going to get rid of just the Float Stone on the Volcanion. And we're going to Team Rocket's Handiwork. And we hit 1 heads. So we're going to Magical Ribbon here for some more Crushing Hammers. I think maybe Crushing Hammer, VS Seeker. Yeah, we can grab 2 Crushing Hammers into VS Seeker, because VS Seeker gives us access to both our Team Flare Grunt and our Rocket's Handiwork. So we're just hoping my opponent doesn't have the cards to win here. This also gives us access to our Lysander, so we can Lysander stall. As 2 Float Stones, 1 Escape Rope, 3 VS Seekers, and an Olympia have hit the discard. So we see the Skyfield come out for my opponent. We can Delinquent that away, but we really need to discard the energy attached to this Volcanion as it can attack next turn. So hopefully our Crushing Hammers will hit. That would be lovely. Right now our win condition is decking our opponent out. As we see Pokemon Ranger and Volcanic Heat. So luckily we have the Max Potion, which we will use. We can attach our energy. We need 2 Crushing Hammer heads. Okay, so there's our first one. We discard from this Volcanion on the bench first. We discard from... Nice. This Volcanion active. I think Delinquent is our best play. Get rid of our opponent's cards. Put them in top deck mode. I think that's really going to help us out more than... yeah, so big Delinquent there from us. We're going to Magical Ribbon for... We only have 1 puzzle at a time left. We'll grab the VS Seeker. We'll grab the Parallel City. And we will grab the Team Flare Grunt. Well, we have one in the discard pile already. Maybe grab an N if my opponent is able to, because we don't have an N in the discard pile. So if our opponent is able to draw something like a Professor Sycamore off their top deck, that would be painful. But next turn we're probably going to want to throw down the Parallel City and Team Flare Grunt. I could Team Rocket's Handiwork, as they do hit the Energy Retrieval. Which, again, they can attach to this, but they can't attack. So yeah, they do attach. We know they only have 1 energy in their hand. But this does put us in quite an awkward position. What to do? Alright, let's see. So... What can we do? We can Team Flare Grunt, which discards their energy, but then they have another one and they can attack. I think our win condition is Team Flare Grunt. They attach next turn to this, and they can attack, but they can only hit 140. But then, after that, yeah, they can only hit 140. And then after that, we Team Rocket's Handiwork, hopefully hit everything we need. And yeah. So we can Magical Ribbon here. I guess maybe searching out an escape rope. No, we wouldn't need that. We have our last VS Seeker in hand. Grab out a Team Flare Grunt. Grab out, I guess maybe, that's really all I want to grab. We could grab an N. We have one in hand, but whatever, we'll grab another. So, we need a clutch Team Rocket's Handiwork here. So, again, just waiting, seeing what my opponent can do. Do they have the cards to win? So there's the energy as we were expecting, and the Volcanic Heat for 120. Again, as we were expecting. We've used all 3 of our max potions, so that's not something we could have searched out. Yeah, so we need the world's clutchest Team Rocket's Handiwork here. Do I Flare Grunt or do I Rocket's Handiwork? A VS Seeker can win the game for them, but they've used all 4, so that's not something we have to worry about. Alright, let's see. Do we hit it? No, we do not. Okay, so we drop a Fire Energy though, which is important. So I guess we'll Magical Ribbon. We'll grab out an N. I mean, I could have Team Flare Grunted, but yeah, so there we go. They do hit the energy. They hit the last energy. They retreat. Well played to my opponent, and they're able to Steam Artillery for the knockout. We were so close. We were just 1 card away. Man, if we had hit that Rocket's Handiwork flip, we would have won, but such is the law of averages. But man, those are long matches. So that is what you get with Sylveon. So thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more Guardians Rising deck videos. I'll try to make them a little more exciting than this one was, but definitely you get an idea for how Sylveon works. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more videos.